The University of California Extension in Los Angeles, for example, has started a new program in which students or potential e-learners for its online course can contact a student support team via email or phone. This support team is available to students throughout their studies. Increased e-learner support brings down the cost of training, and it's a good use of the training budget for any organization. Teaching online is a new field for many instructors, and they need adequate support to be able to do their job well. One of the best support or incentive you can provide for faculty is training them how to teach online. In the United States, a study conducted by the University of California showed that faculty on major university campuses rank stress due to the use of technology at the same level as stress caused by tenure and publishing processes. The U.S. Department of Education also announced last year that close to 80% of teachers in public schools consider themselves to be uncomfortable in using technology. Another form of faculty development is to provide them with a team of professionals to create new online courses or to repurpose existing courses. The British Open University originally established course teams over 30 years ago. During the last 3 decades, the concept has proven to be very useful. A course team, depending on the technology used in instructional delivery, consists of several people, including instructional designers who help in assessing learners' needs, in organizing the content according to these needs, and in making sure that learning objectives have been met. Graphic artists and videographers who create visual materials and record the course sessions. Computer programmers who write codes for web-based software, as well as set up databases and other features. And evaluators who assess the outcome of the course. Traditionally, on college and university campuses, faculty who have written books have been entitled to the royalties paid to them by the publisher of the book. In business and industry, on the other hand, the work that instructors have done has been considered to be work for hire. They receive little or no royalty since they do not own the intellectual property created. With the new web technology, when a university provides services and support to the faculty, the course that is created may not be entirely the intellectual property of the faculty or of the university. This practice has acquired some aspect of work for hire, thus making an issue of the ownership of intellectual property. For example, the ITC video conferences are copyrighted to us, the speakers, who may come from academia or industry. The executive director of the program holds the copyrights to the title and theme of the program, while the ITC is the executive producer that makes possible the authorized transmission and delivery of the program. The universities and training organizations should make their policy regarding intellectual property clear to their instructors and faculty. In some universities, course materials remain the property of the faculty. In addition, as a form of support to the faculty, they may be able to earn additional income when the course is offered to an adequate number of students. In other cases, in addition to direct monetary support, faculty receive release time to work on an online course. The important point here is that e-education and training requires that both institutions and faculty make formal agreements about the intellectual property that is created before the work has begun. When direct communication between the student and learner is via the media of communications, it is important that course materials be structured according to certain principles which would increase learning among students. These principles are useful for classroom instructors as well. However, they are of critical importance when it comes to e-teaching and e-learning. It is always better when course materials are segmented into discrete parts in modules. Each module should have one or a series of objectives. The objectives are cognitive or motor skills which the students are supposed to be able to demonstrate after taking the module. Remember, objectives are for students, not for the instructor. Here are some examples of learning objectives. Objective 1. After studying Module 10, the e-learner will be able to define the concept of bandwidth. Objective 2. After completing Module 5 and watching the related videotape, the e-learner will be able to make up a hospital bed according to hospital regulations. Content for each module is determined by the objectives. For example, for Objective 1, a definition of bandwidth would be necessary, and the mode of representation would be text. However, for Objective 2, the content would be a video of a hospital orderly changing the sheets and making up a bed. The video can be embedded in a web page with additional text information, or it may include text and narration itself. Each module also should have learning activities. For Objective 2, the learning activity would be making up a hospital bed by an orderly trainee. Each module should also have a deliverable and a due date. The deliverable for Objective 1 would be an explanation of bandwidth in learners' own words, which would indicate comprehension of the concept. It is also important for distant learners to know when they are supposed to present their deliverable and how they are supposed to present it. If deliverables can be sent to the instructor via email directly or as an attached file, it has to be specified in the module. For example, the students can send the definition for Objective 1 to the faculty via email. However, in the case of the hospital bed, arrangements must be made with a local learning center or a teaching hospital for the e-learner to practice making a bed and also be able to pass the test. This brings to mind a different aspect of learning support, and that is making strategic alliances with branch offices of your company or government organization, local libraries, learning centers, colleges and universities to support your e-learners for remote library services, laboratory, learning activities, or proctored exams. If you are a well-organized e-teaching and e-learning institution, you also would want to have local coordinators, very much like ITC coordinators, who have organized this session and made it happen. Establishing a distance learning or e-learning project in your organization is one of the most important activities you can undertake to propel your institution into the 21st century and make it the most out of what the new economy has to offer. The rules of the new economy are just beginning to emerge, and every day we learn something new about this new environment. Learning at a distance is at the core of the new economy, which is based on worker productivity through maximizing skills and performance. Performance in the new economy does not necessarily mean working harder, but working smarter. Working smarter means having the knowledge and information at your fingertips so that you can conduct your job with the best of your ability at a maximum performance level and a minimum level in waste of time and effort. This emphasis on productivity has also changed how instructional materials are organized and presented. Courses similar to what we all have taken in high school or college are necessary to provide a baseline knowledge in reading, math, science, and other subject matters. Many of you will be involved in creating and providing such courses on the internet as you implement your e-organization. However, the new information worker, in addition to formal courses in traditional sequence of presentation, needs another type of instructional information which can be described in 3 phrases: information just in time, just for me, and just enough. Most information workers encounter new situations, novel ideas, and previously uncharted territories as they go about conducting their daily duties. As they encounter these situations, they need to have access to information that is readily available to them, just-in-time information. At the same time, they need the information with the context of their company's standard practices and procedures. The information should be just for me and not out of context and generic. And finally, as the information workers engage in their tasks, they need just enough information, not too much and not too little. Efficient performance means being able to do your job as best as you can within a reasonable time and without any errors. That should not require reading through 5 or 10 pages of document just to find 1 paragraph or 2 of what you really need to know to be able to perform the task at hand. Realizing that the new economy works in web time or internet time and not in the slow pace of the 20th century, companies are preparing to offer just-in-time information and electronic performance support systems to their employees. Electronic performance support systems include manuals, job aids, and company policies and practices in databases which employees can search quickly. But today's workplace is dynamic and changes constantly. These changes are reflected in hundreds, if not thousands, of corporate email messages, minutes of meetings, sales and performance databases, call center logs, and myriad other places where employees exchange information or store information. Today, corporate knowledge managers are trying to capture this information and put it into a useful format. This would help everyone to have access to corporate knowledge base and would be able to carry out a job with some knowledge of what others are doing in the company and how their practices and procedures might affect their job. Knowledge Management Magazine is a good source of information for keeping track of developments in this field. Just as corporations are working hard to manage their knowledge base, individuals need to take care of their own personal knowledge management. The best person to put just for me knowledge together is the information worker. This can start with doing simple things such as setting up and managing your bookmarks on the web browser on a systematic basis, to stepping back and taking a broad look at your information needs, documenting strategies you have used to locate such information in the past, and being able to search and locate the information in a timely manner. The future of e-organizations is wide open, and I hope this segment has helped to make you more familiar with how training on the internet can be used for creating and sustaining an e-organization. But what if you decide to build a new e-organization or transform your current institution to a digital one? What would be your steps? And what can you learn from the experience of those who have traveled these roads before? Stay tuned for our next segment when we will address these issues.
Thank you, Farhad. Let us begin this question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that only one question be asked per phone call and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone numbers or fax which appear on your screen. We remind you to make your phone calls at a distance from the monitor to avoid feedback. And our first question is from the Federación Nacional de Comerciantes in Medellín, Colombia. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. Thank you. There are three basic stages in the educational process through the relationship between student and teacher. First, the love for yourself, for everybody, for the teacher, for everybody. Second, the good example. And third stage or basis is discipline. And how can these elements be projected through virtual education? Thank you.
Okay, well,
Good question.
these are all dependent on instructors, and e-learning or e-education does not eliminate the instructor. In fact, it makes the role of the instructor ever so more crucial. The only thing that changes is the fact that the instructor is not presenting information as much as in the past, and so information presentation is delegated to a website or streaming audio, streaming video, whatever. The instructor is going to have social presence and present those factors that you just mentioned in your question.
We have a call from Cuba, from the Senia Internet, La Habana, Cuba. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much. From Sigmatel. Our question is the following. In agreement with the development of the new technologies, information technologies and telecommunications technologies, where would an enterprise be that does not have and live this reality and that expects to continue to develop as a company without ignoring altogether this new e-business and technologies?
Michael?
I think that's an excellent question, and I think, as you'll see in my presentation, organizations are changing, and today you are going to have to use more technology in your organization. I believe that if you don't do that, you're not going to survive.
Is that true in education and government as well as private business?
Very much so. Remember, technology is not going to replace organizations or businesses. Businesses are going to use technology to prosper. And so depending on how you want to teach your students and how fast and how efficiently you want to reach them, then you may have to rely on some technology.
We have a question from Peru, from the Universidad Nacional de Ingeniería in Lima. Welcome. Your question, please.
The question is the following. It is associated that the new economy equates to more sources of more jobs and productivity. Could you expand a little bit on this, elaborate? And also the cost of Internet is one of the great problems in our country, is one of the obstacles because of the high rates of the service providers. How is this in the United States?
Okay, in terms of the first question, I believe in the U.S. right now, the Department of Labor has estimated there's 350,000 information technology positions available. I'm sure the same is similar worldwide. So in the U.S. market and world market, if you have technology skills, there are many jobs available. In terms of your second question about being able to get Internet access, I think as you'll see through this presentation, the real cost is in labor. The technology, which is also internet access, is decreasing, and it's decreasing as there's more competition. There's a lot of competition in the U.S. market, and we're also seeing it on the global scale. So I would expect in the short term internet prices to come down drastically.
We have a question from Mexico, from Dirección General de Educación Tecnología Industrial at CETIS in Mexico DF. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. Thank you. A greeting to you. There are more than 100 teachers here in our organization CETIS, which is the General Technological Education Institute. Why is it that we teachers resist change and using new technologies? What can you give us? How can you orient us a little bit to give us some tips as far as the use of these new technologies? What can you suggest?
Well, I think that teachers are wise in being very selective about how and where they want to use the technology. Where it has made sense for them, they have made sense and they have made use of the technology. For example, web technology is very popular in classrooms. Email is very popular among some students and many faculty and many teachers. But where teachers have resisted technologies is where it actually did not meet their needs. So needs assessment among teachers is probably the most crucial aspect of implementation of technology. Simply ask the teachers where they want the technology implemented and how they want the technology implemented, and then take the lead from them, rather than impose the technology on teachers.
We have a question from Brazil, from Senac in Porto Alegre, Brazil. Welcome. Your question.
Go ahead. Good morning. Buenos días. Our question is, how can you obtain benefits from information technology when resources are not enough, when we still don't have enough resources?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And how that's utilized today is that you'll find what are called subject matter experts who are able, via the technology, to distribute their learning. So just like today, we're doing a video conference. I don't have to be in any foreign country. I'm here able to deliver my message.
Mm-hmm. So technology, if I'm understanding you correctly, Mike, amplifies and enhances your resources.
Exactly, if it's used properly, yes.
We have a question now from Mexico, from the Universidad Tecnológica de Nezahualcóyotl. Thank you for calling. Your question, please.
Thank you. We all know that internet can be used to do a lot of things. Well, but what can we do in order to not lose sensitivity with people and the personal contact, since that personal contact is lost? How can we continue to have this being in touch, in real touch?
I think when you're talking about the internet, it's just one element of the learning situation. And it's up to the instructor how to deliver that. So a case in point would be you could have internet courses online, but the students would meet once or twice per the course to get together to have a collaborative, real person-to-person session.
I have the reverse of the problem. I think that there are too many people who want to stay in touch with me. I get hundreds of email messages from my students over a period of a week. And so my problem is quite the opposite, how to not be in touch with so many people at the same time.
We have a question now from our neighbor immediately to the south, the Centro Universitario de Tijuana in La Paz, Baja California Sur in Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. Our question is, what are the best strategies to install an e-organization within a university or a higher institution? higher education institution, and how can we protect intellectually the property of the material that is given to the students? So intellectual property rights and how to protect that of all the material that we're giving out to students.
Well, those are two very good questions. The first half of the question is not a simple matter to discuss in a short period of time. Universities are just like other organizations. You need to start with faculty and students, assess their needs, and find out what exactly they want from technology, and take the lead from your students and from faculty. Then the chances of success increases. As far as intellectual property rights are concerned, copyrighting them is the most important thing to do. You need to copyright, but at the same time, you need to make very clear to whom the intellectual property belongs. Is it the faculty's property? Is it the university's property? Is it a joint property? So we need to come up with legal agreements that we didn't have before in universities about the ownership of intellectual properties.
We have a question from the Dominican Republic, from Codotel in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. Thank you. Our question is, taking into account the evolution or the development in the future of this technology, how is this going to be, how will this affect the velocity of the transmission, the speed, and there are simulation programs and the movement of digital and all the data. Isn't that going to jam the lines? How is that going to happen? What's going to happen with that?
That's an excellent question, but right now when we talk about that, we're speaking about the infrastructure, and right now major corporations are going from fiber to actual wave vision multiplexing. So what you're going to see is that if the need is there, that there are major corporations throughout the world which will build the infrastructure to carry the transmission.
We have a question now from the Universidad de Sonora in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Welcome. Your question, please.
Good morning. Greetings from the University of Sonora. Our congratulations to Dr. Farhad Sabbagh for his wonderful presentation and the ITC for this great program. Our question is related to the teaching of the e-teaching. How can a group of experts, of presenters, how can they really impact and impress upon a very large audience? Don't you think that electronic education would generate unemployment? Or if that's the case, what strategies could we implement to compensate this possible effect?
Well, it could generate unemployment in certain segments of the economy, but by the same token, it has generated a lot more jobs in other segments of the economy, and that has been the case anytime that you have a technological shift from, let's say, agriculture to industry, and now we are seeing another technological shift from industry to information technology. So what is happening now is that the number of people who are needed in industrial sector is decreasing, whereas the number of people who are needed in the information sector is increasing.
We go now to Ecuador, to the Universidad Espiritu Santo in Guayaquil, Ecuador. Welcome. Your question.
Good morning. The traditional method ensures a very high degree of interaction in the classroom. What kind of rate of interaction would you say is guaranteed in the distance education, and what negative experiences have you had, and what do you think will happen to a university that doesn't keep up with the times and does not update?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I think that this myth of face-to-face interaction is just what that is. There are some small classes in universities, classes like what I teach in the graduate level. We have 20 to 30 students, and yes, you're right. There is a certain level of interaction in the classroom situation. But when you go to undergraduate classes where you find 100, 150, 200 students there, I wonder how much real interaction there exists between the learners and the instructor. Having said that, I think that the level of interaction actually increases when you implement technology. I just mentioned about the number of email messages that I get during the week. And the technology is really an enabler, an enhancer. It enhances the ability of not only the faculty to talk to the students, but also it generates more questions on the part of the students, more interaction on the part of the student.
Right, and I'd like to add to that, in the private or the business sector, there are not enough instructors to physically be in so many places simultaneously, so major global corporations are using all of these technologies to pass knowledge on, which is changing very quickly from month to month.
We have a question from Mexico City, the Instituto Politécnico Nacional Educación Continua. Welcome. Your question, please.
Thank you very much. Very happy to greet you. And we have two questions. Could you elaborate a little bit on how will the libraries accept this e-education and virtual education? What do you think, how do you think the Mexican foreign debt is going to affect the development of the e-organization?
Well, I think we are prepared to respond to the first segment of your question, and that is how the libraries are changing. I think the libraries are changing rapidly, very rapidly, responding to this new paradigm in information technology. Most librarians have realized that they have to become knowledgeable about information technology and integrate the use of information technology in presentation and delivery of library services to students and faculty. So that dramatic change is occurring very rapidly in most of the libraries that I have checked recently.